Welcome back to the Chattable podcast, where we learn real English in real life, enrich vocabulary, and feel proud. Imagine just for a moment sitting in a 1920s prison cell.
Oh, setting a dark scene right off the bat.
Yeah, right. So you're staring down this hallway at a heavy wooden chair.
Yeah.
And it's just, wired with these thick electrical cables.
That's incredibly grim.
It is. But that literal, lethal piece of furniture is the exact reason your boss might tell you you're in the hot seat at work today.
It's a pretty staggering jump, right? From capital punishment straight to corporate boardroom.
It really is.
But that's the hidden architecture of the English language. So many of these casual phrases you hear thrown around in business or, pop culture, they carry these massive, heavy historical undertones.
Which is exactly our mission for this episode. We are dissecting two incredibly common high-stakes idioms today, hot seat and dumb down.
Two very heavy hitters.
Yeah, we want you to understand the actual mechanics of these phrases, like where they come from, why they hold so much psychological weight, and, crucially, how to avoid the social landmines of using them in the wrong context.
Because context is everything, right? If you only memorize dictionary definitions, you're going to completely miss the power dynamics built into the words.
Exactly.
And understanding those dynamics is really what separates someone who just speaks English from someone who commands it.
So let's start with that first phrase, hot seat. I was actually reading an article recently about accountability in the tech industry.
Oh, yeah. Who was it about?
Specifically regarding OpenAI CEO, Sam Altman. The journalist noted that, with one controversy after another.
Or the leadership shakeups and all that.
Exactly. The safety debates, regulatory scrutiny. The quote was, Altman has really been putting himself in the hot seat over the last few months.
It's a phrase that just instantly communicates a very specific kind of pressure. But, to understand the weight of that sentence, we really have to look at the linguistic mechanism at play.
Right.
Why does a chair map onto our cognitive understanding of social pressure? Well, in the early 1900s, as you hinted at earlier, the hot seat was actual prison slang for the electric chair.
Meaning the seat that could literally end your life. I mean,
Right.
The stakes couldn't possibly be higher than that.
Exactly. And over the decades, journalism and pop culture started borrowing the phrase, and obviously the lethal element faded. But the psychological core of the metaphor, that survived completely intact.
Yeah.
Just think about the physical reality of the electric chair. You're strapped in, You're entirely visible to observers, and you absolutely cannot escape the current.
Wow. Yeah.
So when we use the phrase today, we're evoking that exact feeling of being trapped in a highly public spectacle of judgment.
I always visualize like an old noir detective movie. You know those ones?
Oh, yeah, the black and white ones.
Yeah. A suspect is sitting in this tiny, uncomfortable chair in a claustrophobic room. They're sweating profusely, and there's this single blindingly bright lamp pointed aggressively right at their face.
While detectives just barrage them with questions, right?
Exactly. They can't look away from the light, and they can't leave the room.
That aggressive, inescapable glare is the perfect modern equivalent. You really only use this phrase when someone is the center of severe, usually external scrutiny.
Okay, let me test the boundaries of this, because I want to make sure we aren't, watering the phrase down for you guys listening.
Here's me.
Imagine a scenario where I'm a startup founder. I'm walking into a room full of highly critical venture capitalists, and I have 10 minutes to pitch my company.
Okay, high stakes.
Yeah, my heart is pounding, the pressure is immense, and my company's financial survival totally depends on this pitch. Am I in the hot seat?
You are definitely under immense pressure, but no, you are not in the hot seat.
Wait, really? Even with the financial survival of the whole company on the line?
Yeah, really. The key missing ingredient in your startup scenario is the element of defense against failure or wrongdoing.
Oh, I see.
When you're pitching, you're trying to win something. You are on the offensive. The hot seat requires you to be on the defensive. It almost always involves accountability for a controversy, a failure, or massive criticism.
So it's the difference between trying to impress someone and trying to defend yourself from being torn apart.
Exactly. Let's look at a textbook application of the phrase from recent news. Think about the aviation industry, specifically Boeing.
Right, it's been everywhere.
Following multiple highly publicized safety failures and airplane malfunctions, Boeing's CEO, Dave Calhoun, found himself firmly in the hot seat during a congressional hearing.
Sitting at that long table with all the microphones shoved in his face while senators demand answers.
Notice the power asymmetry there. He's in the chair, the cameras are flashing, senators are aggressively interrogating him about systemic safety failures.
Yeah, he's totally trapped.
His job, his company's legacy, public trust, they're all on the line. He cannot just politely excuse himself and leave the room. He has to sit there and absorb the heat.
Wow.
That is the true hot seat. It requires high stakes, external accountability, and the absolute inability to escape the glare.
You know, it's highly ironic when you think about it.
How so?
Well, you have executives like Dave Calhoun or Sam Altman sweating in the corporate hot seat to defend their companies, right? Well, the actual technology those companies are building is designed to do the exact opposite.
Oh, that's a great point.
Yeah, it's built to completely remove friction, struggle, and pressure from our daily lives, which actually leads us to a completely different kind of linguistic problem in this episode.
Right, the problem of simplification. Which brings us to our second phrase.
So I was looking at some industry analysis on artificial intelligence, and the writer made this fascinating point.
What did they say?
They wrote that with the latest advancements in AI, tech companies have really dumbed down the sophistication of software engineering.
Dumbed down, yeah.
They said they've made it so anyone with zero coding experience can build a website or a mobile app in a matter of hours. And the phrase dumbed down really caught my eye there.
Dumb down is a very heavy phrasal verb. And just like our first idiom, its origins tell you everything you need to know about its undertone.
Okay, where does this one come from?
But instead of the prison system, this one actually comes from the 1930s American movie industry.
Moving from the electric chair to the silver screen. I like it. What was happening in 1930s Hollywood that created this concept?
Well, the studio system was becoming this massive industrialized machine. Movies were transitioning from silent films to talkies, and the executives were just obsessed with mass appeal.
Because they needed to sell tickets.
Exactly. They needed to sell tickets to a massive, incredibly diverse demographic from, urban intellectuals to rural workers. To achieve that, studio executives would routinely order their writers to dumb down the scripts.
Meaning they were actively stripping out anything that might challenge the audience, like removing complex philosophical themes, flattening out nuanced dialogue, or deleting subtle cultural jokes.
They essentially treated the audience as a monolith with a low cognitive ceiling. They operated on the assumption that a broad audience just couldn't handle intellectual friction.
Right.
So they forced creators to remove the sophistication to guarantee mass consumption.
I want to challenge the negative connotation of that for a second, though. I mean, it was the 1930s, the Great Depression was happening.
Fair point.
People wanted escapism, and the studios had to avoid bankruptcy. Didn't that strategy of mass accessibility actually save the film industry? Sometimes complexity is just bad marketing.
Financially. Yeah, you could absolutely argue it was a necessary survival tactic for the studios. But linguistically, the phrase dumb down was coined by the frustrated writers and creators, not the executives.
Oh, that makes sense.
So the phrase permanently locks in the perspective of the artist who feels their work has been compromised. It implies that the simplification comes at the direct cost of quality.
So it inherently carries a sense of loss. You aren't just making it accessible. You are mutilating the art to make it accessible.
Exactly. Let's look at one of the most infamous examples of this in pop culture history to really cement the feeling of the phrase. Have you seen Ridley Scott's sci-fi masterpiece, Blade Runner?
Oh, absolutely. A visually stunning, moody, deeply ambiguous film.
Ambiguous being the key word there.
Okay.
When Ridley Scott originally cut the film, it asked all these complex questions about humanity and artificial intelligence without holding the audience's hand.
Right, it made you think.
But the studio executives panicked. They watched it and decided the general public just wouldn't understand it. So they forced Ridley Scott to bring Harrison Ford into a recording booth and add a voiceover to explicitly narrate the plot.
I remember that. They literally had the main character explaining the movie to the audience in real time because they didn't trust the viewers to figure it out.
They believed the mystery needed to be dumbed down so the masses wouldn't leave the theater confused. They actively removed the nuance to make it digestible.
That's wild.
And today, the version without the voiceover is widely considered the superior piece of art.
So bringing this back to the AI example we discussed earlier, when we say AI has dumbed down software engineering, we aren't just saying AI made coding easier.
No, not at all.
We're acknowledging that the underlying architecture, like the deep understanding of how a system actually works, has been hidden or stripped away so that an untrained person can just type a prompt into a text box.
The friction is gone, but the deep comprehension is lost. And that is exactly why this phrase is incredibly dangerous if you use it in the wrong social context.
Okay, let's explore that danger, because making things easier to understand usually sounds like a positive thing in everyday life, right?
Do you think so? Yeah.
So imagine a scenario where you are an international student. You're sitting in a high-level economics seminar, and the professor introduces a deeply complex macroeconomic theory.
Okay, I'm with you.
You are completely lost. So you go to office hours, and the professor patiently sits with you. They use a brilliant, relatable analogy. They walk you through the math step by step, and suddenly the concept clicks.
A great teacher moment.
Exactly. You completely understand it. Should you look at your professor and say, wow, thank you so much for dumbing that down for me?
If you want to deeply offend that professor, yes.
Oh, wow.
Otherwise, you must never, ever use the phrase in that context.
What exactly is the social power dynamic happening there? Like, why is it so offensive?
Well, it comes back to the 1930s Hollywood executives looking down on the audience. When you thank someone for dumbing something down, you are accidentally insulting both of you.
Both of us.
Yes. First, you're insulting the professor's life work. You are implying that their highly sophisticated field of study is now just simple nonsense.
You telling them they compromise the integrity of their subject matter?
Yeah, right. And second, you are degrading your own intellect. You are heavily implying that you lack the cognitive capacity to understand real economics, so you're thanking the professor for making it suitable for a fool.
Thanks for treating me like an idiot, professor.
Yeah, that is definitely not the vibe you want to project during office hours.
Not at all.
So what is the alternative? How do we describe that positive interaction?
Great teaching, or great translation, is about clarifying. It is about illuminating or distilling a complex ideas.
Distilling, I like that.
A good teacher removes the unnecessary jargon, but they preserve the sophistication of the concept. They elevate the student's understanding. Dumbing down, on the other hand, lowers the material to meet the lowest common denominator.
Yeah, that distinction is huge. Clarifying elevates the listener. Dumbing down degrades the material.
Which is why context and undertone completely dictate fluency.
And that really summarizes our entire mission for you in this episode. You can't just throw these phrases around based on their literal dictionary definitions.
You really can't. You have to feel the historical weight behind them. You have to reserve hot seat for scenarios involving true, high-stakes, sweat-inducing external accountability.
Don't use it just because you're nervous about a Tuesday morning team meeting.
Exactly. And you must handle dumb down like hazardous material. Reserve it for critiques of media or technology that has been stripped of its nuance for mass consumption.
And never, ever use it to thank someone for helping you understand a difficult concept.
Ever.
You know, if we pull back and look at the broader implications of that AI sentence we discussed, it actually leaves us with a deeply provocative question to ponder.
Ooh, I love a good philosophical puzzle. What's the question?
As artificial intelligence continues to rapidly dumb down highly complex technical tasks, whether that's coding, data analysis, or even legal research, so that anyone can execute them with a simple text prompt,
Yeah.
will we, as a society, eventually lose our appreciation for the deep human expertise required to build those underlying systems? Or will AI simply redefine what we consider to be true sophistication in the future? When the execution of a task is completely effortless, what becomes the new standard for human brilliance?
Are we losing our sophistication? Or just changing the definition of what it looks like? That is a phenomenal thought for you to chew on as you go about your day.
It really makes you think.
It does. Thank you for joining us for this episode. We hope you walk away feeling a little more precise, a little more aware of the history hidden in the words you use, and incredibly proud of your English vocabulary. Until next time.